That's right. I thought we'd do an accounting of those that didn't come to my induction, Scotty, but look, that's far from it. It's great to have you here, Janice, and other staff. Welcome to the meeting as well. It's great to have our first meeting, and in some sense, Stephen, I think it's fair to say this is a wee bit of a catch-up from December. Thank you. We had that chance to have a quick catch-up in December with everybody, and you'll recall we particularly had that very interesting briefing from Fitch about their approach to their grading of our debt, which is something which we will need to revisit. And also thank you that we had a good session this morning about induction really into the committee, with a couple of matters to focus on what does the role of the committee do, but also are there things we could do better going forward. And Scotty's nailed me to the floor and said yes, and we will have a talk about that later on, which is really great. So thank you for that, and welcome to the first formal meeting for the year of the Audit and Risk Committee. It's certainly great to be here. Do I have any apologies at all at this stage? I think we're all here, which is great. Perhaps an apology. No, I won't apologise. I have indicated to Scotty I do have to be up the road. I'll get a bit nervous by about 3:15. So if we're still going at that stage, I'll ask Scotty to assume the chair. But it's a great agenda, so I don't want to short-circuit overall the committee's consideration of it. So if that's the case, we'll do it. We do have one item of urgent business, which is, I think it's been given to you, is that right? I think everybody's got it, which is the paper headed Audit New Zealand, the Audit Terms of Engagement 26 to 28. Regrettably, just didn't quite make it in time for the agenda papers, and so I'm going to move that we amend our agenda to include this paper as a late item. It's relevant to get it out of the way now, given we're in 26 already, and it's just setting out the terms of engagement with our auditor. Do I have a seconder for that, please? That motion. Thank you, Michelle. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against, it's carried. Do we have any matters of minor nature? No? I haven't been informed of any. Are there any conflicts of interest matters in the papers that you need to note your interest for? Good. Just formally, mine change a wee bit at this time of year. They haven't quite finalised. They are changing, in other words, which councils I'm engaged with, but I think it's clear to say at this stage none of the ones that I may or may not become involved in relate in any way, in any shape or form to Timaru. So I don't think there's any issue there. So we're into the report section. I just would like to mention that I've asked to change the agenda. We actually have a natural set of items which are with our external auditor, and they are currently under the agenda item 5.6, which is the issues and process improvement, a very good piece of work by staff looking in the mirror. The Audit New Zealand Management Report, which is 5.7, and 5.8, which is a debenture trust audit report. And I'm also, of course, just accepted as an urgent item the engagement letter. And I'd like to move that to being the last 4 papers in section 5, because it means then when we go into PX, we can invite staff to leave and have our session with the external auditor without staff present. And I treat that with a bit of seriousness because I understand that Rudy has asked that he does actually have that time today. So we'll deal with everything else in section 5 first, then we'll do the annual report, the management report, the bench report, terms of engagement, which is the late paper, before concluding section 5. Do you need a motion out of me to amend the agenda, or are you okay? You're okay, good. That's probably the most successful part of the day, eh? Rightio, let's move to 5.1 and the action items, Jess. Anything here that need worry us, guys?
actually come up with the strategy, so hopefully that will be coming, well, it will be coming to the next one. The accounting policy fair value, I wrote that piece. So effectively we had a bit of a discussion around gap. So we do need to bring a paper to, and I thought of the next audit meeting, but actually I'm not sure we've got time for that, because depending on what we choose to do, we probably need to get it started before then. So gap allowed as a public benefit entity, we have a choice of going on cost basis or revaluation basis, and it's per class of assets. And I'm particularly thinking more around our property. We did revalue in 2002, 23 years ago, coming up 24 years ago, and I'm standing back going, well, actually, given we've been 24 years on cost basis, should the accounting standard be changed to cost basis, or should we continue with revalue basis? And if we are going to go on a revalue basis, then we've got to get the valuation done either this year or next year, with rates capping on its way. And I am anticipating there will be quite a significant step up in depreciation if we go down the revaluation model.
Yeah.
So there's quite a significant decision that needs to be made here, and there will be pros and cons of both. Well, I can only think of pros for the revaluation, but I'm an accountant, so I have a certain mindset with that. But I think there's quite a paper needed here. While the audit report says we are in line with GAP, it does talk about materiality. But again, and I also look at our accounting policy, it's not very clear. It's not well written in my mind.
Look, I'm open to that, Nigel, from my perspective. I marked that one down as well and looked at this. I'm persuadable either way. I'm persuadable either way. There is a line of thinking coming out of DIA with water assets that there's a one-time chance to put them on a cost basis rather than a revalued basis, to get away from the revaluation regime and the costs that are associated with that. But, I mean, the compensating issue is you've got to have pretty good asset management information so that you're still funding your price path correct. And so I'm persuadable either way. Whichever way you go, you've got to make certain you're bringing the right revenue in and doing the right work. So it'd be interesting to see what the paper looks like, and I think that's the way to do it.
And potentially rates capping and how that's determined, there could be a strategic component in there as well.
Yes, I think the point being, it's a trade-off between what you think you get away with your asset management work, I would have thought, Janice, and versus funding depreciation. I mean, there is a view that actually asset management will give you better reality of the level of revenue you need rather than the blunt exercise of depreciation. So well worth having a look at anyway. Thank you for that. I agree, you may want to think about the cost of doing so relative to rates capping, but in lots of ways the LTP would be potentially the place to implement, amongst other things. Yeah, okay.
So through you, Mr Chair, just on the IT strategy, can we just have a confirmed timing on that, just so it doesn't get kicked? When's it coming to SLT?
Well, it will be coming in February, but it may not be the final document in my mind.
Just what's taking so long on that? Because it's been sitting there for a wee while.
I think they've gone down a pathway, and I think they've gone too low in terms of short-term work plan rather than a strategic. And I think we've gone. I don't believe that the ISSP will be an ISSP. I think it will be what we're going to end up getting is a work program. So that's what I'm worried about.
Because, it's quite, I think this one's really important, obviously, with the changes to the IT system, but also with the changes in AI and those sorts of things. I think it's really important. There's so many opportunities. So at strategic level, what we're looking to do would be ideal. And I think it's really important, but we need it not next year.
Yeah, and I think also, though, with the simplifying of local government, that's got to come into it now.
That's right.
And we're going to have to think hard around a broader region, which I think is missing. There's potentially going to be missing, and I think we've got to do that a lot better than what it is.
Yeah, so
The last thing we want to be is an island with our own strategy. We've got to think around, particularly the local neighbours.
yeah, so either being able to meet the scalability test or a transferability test. Yeah, getcha. Yeah, well, look, it's worth getting that right. But it obviously sounds like it's going to go through a couple of rounds yet before we get to see it. Thank you. That's fine. And look, the only other one, and I'll take it on advice. I was a bit interested as to whether we would or wouldn't. I just noticed under the policies the risk committee are responsible for, it's noted that we'll go to 6 yearly reviews of those, and I'll put a question mark against that one. I'm not entirely certain I'd want to hold them out that long before review. 3 years would be normal, Stephen. Particularly in light of some of the ones that we're responsible for, and they're probably the sort of thing that should be in front of, let's say, probably a new committee at least once in the Atrium.
Yep, we can come with a paper and discuss that. One of the things is we did have a standard 3-yearly review, but there was a lot of policies that weren't sort of falling through the cracks on that, and it's not the big showy ones, but it's all those little small policies.
Yeah.
And it was to actually give the staff a realistic target to be able to actually review them within the...
But that's changing your review to fit something that's not necessarily working to make the staff reviews compliant, when actually it should be how frequently should they be reviewed, and then how do we resource it so that they do get reviewed appropriately. Just because we're currently missing the mark doesn't mean we change the mark.
I'll leave that as a feeling from the committee, Stephen, and you can respond back. As I said, I'll take it on advice, but I just wonder whether, in fact, 6 yearly is right. I have to acknowledge that for some of my committees, I do see overflow from planned dates for revision of policies, and the world doesn't fall apart. But I just think something like looking at sensitive expenditure tends to be something that I think is important from a trinium to a trinium perspective in terms of guidelines, approach, definition. I know the auditors will look at that each year as they go through the system, and it may be that's the indicator we're having to change, but I just wonder whether we shouldn't ourselves proactively.
So I'd say whether it's better to take a slightly more nuanced approach where you have a sort of A list, B list, C list. So there's ones like the accounting policy that are done yearly, there's ones that are done on a triennium basis, and then there's the...
I'd be happy with that. I'd be less happy that we just said there's a blanket 6-year rule, which I take your point, Janice.
Yeah, I'd be struggling to see any that would be out as far as 6 years. Doesn't mean they need to be changed every 3 years, but or whatever the frequency of review is, but at least reviewed. And another good discipline is having these listed annually in a report, and just the review date due and the fact that when they were last reviewed, so that the committee can see whether they're overdue or not.
Okay, thank you for that. And I think the rest, Mark,
Can I just on risk management, and we've had a devastating tragedy in Tauranga, And I think the country is going to be thinking hard around what's happening up there, and particularly the placement where council fits in there. And if anyone's seen the Facebook document there that is talking about the fact that council hadn't worked over the whole system rather than to individual departments. And I think that's something that we probably need to have a conversation about at some time, whether that's possible. It's sort of similar to when I was in the health system. You know, we used to talk about, you know, when the holes of the Swiss cheese line up in your health system, and people do unfortunately fall through those holes.
That's right.
It's tragic, and I think we need to have a wee session sometime to think about, could that actually happen to us? Because we are a council, and councils, a lot of our policies are actually lined up at different functions and departments, and they miss the overall. And I think we need to have a conversation about that. And I think, you know, I think it's something worth talking about.
Look, I'd love that idea. I'm going to say I love that idea. You, again, have to acknowledge the tragedy, but I think it does become a really important point. I haven't seen the Facebook stuff, but, you know, when you start looking at how people are digging around, it starts to, you know, raise good questions that as a council we should be perhaps thinking
and
and
it's across more areas than just that. I mean, I see a flavour of it in the LIM internal audit, that there are multiple departments and they need to be much more connected and knitted together to make sure that things don't fall through the holes and expose the council. So there does need to be a conversation more broadly than just the emergency.
And I suspect at a local government level it's also between the regional council and the well, in this case the city council as well. So when you're on that CDB, mate,
you'll bang on there. We've got some classics.
Be well worth a look. I don't know whether we've got an action item there at all, but I do think let's not lose sight of that. I mean, unfortunately, the Tauranga situation, so we'll know we've got to have it. Okay, that's really good. Okay, thank you. That's a much longer discussion on a very good paper than I anticipated. But the resolution is that we receive and note the updates, and Steve and Nigel, I hope you can appreciate some of the comments we've made. Do a mover and a seconder, please. Thank you, Stacey. Thank you, Scotty. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, say aye. Those against, it's carried. Righty, Narayan, the work program, please.
Through the Chair, Audit and Risk Committee work program, standing agenda items 2026. Number 1, standing agenda items. Number 2 is other agenda items. And number 3 is audit and assurance agenda items. And we are also requesting, seeking input from the councillors for the workshops that you would like us to have in 2026. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Narayan. I appreciate that. And again, the clarity of the report. Any comments or questions on this? Scotty, I did name you, and it probably was a bit unfair because I think I said to you we should really have a sit down and chat about actually what we're doing in terms of, in light of my induction comments, which you know I don't think it's going to change personally what we've got here. It's perhaps a question of how we do it rather than the topic area. So I think I mean I'm happy that when I went through this was right. The answer is yes, we need a workshop. And I think there are some aspects around, as a new council, agreement about what our strategic risks are, and after the induction you'll know from me it's the opportunities, values and what have you that we're trying to create that we need to start with, but actually what are our strategic risks. I've indicated that also in my induction that I feel an area that we can develop is our risk appetite work. And in light of your good not email, PowerPoint, Stephen, perhaps more so now that a good number of them look like they're a bit red. Okay, so the answer is yes, we need to hold a workshop, and I would think sooner rather than later, in my view, even associated with the March meeting, if that was possible, either on the same day or either side of the 27th.
That would probably work quite well. The thing we came down to is when we used looking at the strategic list
Yeah,
based, which is going through peer review at the moment, but that, based on what the highest risk in the operational, wasn't really giving a view of what we thought were the actual strategic risks facing the organisation, particularly with the tsunami of legislation change coming through.
yeah,
So we do actually need to go back to the drawing board with that, and
yeah.
I wouldn't say start again, but actually work out what's missing from those at the moment, because say, I mean, water
Yeah.
wasn't scoring very high, and that's probably one of the biggest risk issues we've got, and various other bits and bobs weren't actually turning up there. So it's an ongoing project at the moment, I'm afraid.
Yeah, no, look, I think you're right. I think the way I'd turn it, we build on what we've got, Steve. That might mean it feels like we're starting afresh, but I think obviously the whole tsunami, I think the tsunami of reform that we've got clearly is well, it's both an opportunity and therefore a risk thing to be managed. We need to name it and deal with it.
And I think that the appetite via this group and the council at large is probably important to nail down, because there are some high-risk things we will not be able to get under that line without sort of taking the activity away.
So, look, March would be a good time to do it if we could, only because I'm thinking about the life cycle of the committee and it's the start of the training. It would be good to do it. But look, you and I can discuss, Stephen and Narian, what time that actually is. So perhaps it's an action point. Oh, yeah, it will be an action point. We'll hopefully have it done by the time we also meet, which is that we identify a day for a risk workshop. Okay, anything else? No? Well, look, let's, the rest is fine. I think, Narian, it all makes sense, and we monitor that we deliver on those for each of our meetings, which is good. So the proposal is that we receive and note. Do I have a mover and a seconder, please? Thank you. Somebody? Thank you, Stacey, and I'll second that. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against, it's carried. Narian, the open auditor items, please. Any comment you'd like to make on these, please?
Through the Chair, external auditors open recommendations. There are 16 new recommendations as per the final report dated 4th December 2025, which will be added for the March Audit and Risk Committee meeting. There are currently 24 open recommendations from the external auditors, and 8 are closed as per the final report received on December 2025. And the full New Zealand Audit Management Report is also included in the agenda. Thank you.
Thanks for that. Do we have questions or comments, Narian, on this, please? Partly does relate also to the subsequent papers we've actually got here. One of the ones which probably interested me, not because it was just number one, was the delegations. And I'm just conscious of last year's restructuring, some of the changes that have gone on for various reasons elsewhere. Delegations have become a bit of an interest of mine. Can you give me perhaps a sense of, because the target date's clearly out, what's the sort of timeline? What's the size and scale of this, and what's the time?
Elliot's since taken on this role. I mean, one of the things that Audit New Zealand note is that there's a disconnect with ESCR.
All right.
Hopefully that will go away when we upgrade to Authority Altitude, so we'll be using a single system again, so that will make it easier to ensure that the two systems are talking the same language because they're one system. But it's a focus for Elliot. He's unravelling it at the moment, so I can't give you an exact timeline, but hopefully it will be within this year. But it just depends on sort of workloads and everything else that jumps out of the cupboard at the moment.
Without any, and this may be a dramatic way of putting it, without an operative financial delegation register in place or framework, is that creating more work to get spend approved or even planned spend approved?
There is an operative delegation manual or delegations in place at the moment, and it is. I mean, it's pretty strong at the moment, but we are just trying to make sure it's consistent everywhere.
Yeah.
And that everyone actually knows what delegation they are working to as well is a key part of it.
You wanted to say something, Nigel? No?
There is an operative delegation.
Yeah.
I
okay.
think ESCA's got some flaws.
I'm not certain I wanted to hear that, to be honest, given ESCA was such a problem to implement. But anyway, there we go. Yes, Janice.
The number of external audit recommendations that are on here and that remain open, I found highly frustrating, at the unacceptable end of things. For all the time I've been on this committee, every year end has been a rush and an issue, and we've come out less than crisp in our presentation to the auditors, and it must be frustrating for the auditors as well as for the staff, and it comes at a significant cost for council and the stress on the staff. So I was sitting there going, why is this? It seems to be that the processes, that could be software and things. I can't see an IT roadmap where all the systems and things fit together and how the decision making's made as to what's coming next and how we're going to improve things over time. So I came down to a question: is it capability? Is it the systems? Is it the resources? Or is it the culture? And I think it's a combination, probably, of all of those. But there has been no improvement over 8 years that I can see. Now, you guys internally, that might be unfair because I just swan in here and then swan out again. But
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all of the above, but it is an iterative process that we are upgrading the systems, we are upskilling staff. We are trying to change the internal culture of making the annual report process a sort of a whole year-long thing rather than just a rush to the end from the year date, which is one of the systemic problems that we noted in the paper before. So it is work on. I mean, the problem with these is we've got one shot to close them every year, and if we don't get it,
yeah. But I think it's more. I think you're right that it's more fundamental than the year-end brute force shove it through.
Yep.
It's throughout the year and the processes and the attitude and the reconciliations and all that sort of stuff. I think it's more systemic than just a year-end issue.
yep. And that's been acknowledged by the team here that I think the team, or we end up as a group trying to put this one document together, carrying a lot at the end of the year, when we should just be reporting what's there at the end of the year rather than having to fix things. And
I'll be blunter than that. We do have a culture where reports and recommendations don't get the urgency that they need. Whether they're external auditors' recommendations, internal auditors' recommendations, or other recommendations, we're not strong at saying, here's your deadline, meet it. We seem to allow them to just meander along. So I'll take that as the CE, and we need to fix that. Okay.
I always look at these, Nigel, from a bit of a systems perspective, or sort of almost a topic area. And if we have to work backwards. But I would like to think, because we've got a good set of papers here, and as I've acknowledged, you're a very honest one around, for instance, where we're at with our preparation of the annual report. I think if there was, quite frankly, a focus on that, you would then build back to some of these issues like capitalisation and WIP reconciliations would naturally fall into place. It's just to have the focus. And I think that's the point you're making here in some sense, Janice. There's a sense I'd like to try and make this bite-sizable, and I want to go over, I want everything off it in the way you are, but I'd almost want to say, well, to be honest, get the annual report right, and I think a lot of it will flow out, get the delegations right, and they'd be probably looking at these, they'd be my two biggies, but it's a question of actually getting them right, otherwise we'll be yet for another session with our auditor this year, etc.
I think it beyond just this external audit recommendations one, the internal audit recommendations and the other ones
Yes.
that you were talking about, Nigel, I wonder about the process that they go through when the findings are discussed and accepted. Are they discussed and accepted by SLT as a group, and are they prioritised? And when the dates are set for the due date for clearance of an action, is that agreed by SLT so that the prioritisation, the resourcing, etc., is all agreed and aligned and everyone's committed? It's not just the poor old person in the wastewater treatment plant that's held accountable or not. It's actually the whole organisation. We committed to do this.
Yep, you just need to look at the report tomorrow, the council, the actions register. Some of those have been there so long, they're actually, yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple here we could take off ourselves, I think. Yeah, okay. Yeah, we sound like grumpy old people, but I think if there's a need for a positive tone from the top, it is actually that we need to tackle these. But you know, it feels a bit naff, but I'd be open to a segmented approach to this. But get the big ones that really count first. And I think the small ones will fall out as a result going through it.
I actually think the delegations are quite strong here, but it's the processes that need the attention.
Well, look, I'll take that one on. I mean, my concern is if the organisation's changed, Nigel, and you've fixed it, your delegation's registered from the other, it probably means stuff has either been having to be taken up high and not delegated enough because you don't have the register in place. In other words, there's too much load on you guys. Or equally, there could be some people approving who shouldn't be approving. So it is. I mean, I'll take on board your assurance. There's a level of quite strong approvals for expenditure and procurement, etc. It'll be good, therefore, just to have this tidied up at the back end if that's the case. But of course, there's the problem. It'd be good to have this tidied up, and it becomes a question: what's the priority that should be given to that? I guess I'm arguing it should be quite high. I don't know what Elliot's program's like, but anyway, and that's not a problem about Elliot, that's just a problem about resourcing. Okay, any other questions or comments? Thanks, Scotty, and then Michelle.
Thank you. One of the other things that I found was interesting were there were items here that earlier on last year were shown as completed, and then of course Audit have come back and said, no, they're not. So something's lost in translation in some of these items, isn't it? I don't know if it's the understanding of what they're asking or how we're interpreting it, but it strikes me that something is lost in the translation on those.
It can sometimes be something we think we've fixed, but then when they audit it, it's not fixed. So, I mean, it can be as straightforward as that, because sometimes we'll think we've resolved something, and that might be how something's presented or how we report on something, but it doesn't meet their standards, so they'll keep it alive for the next year.
And along those same lines, there are a couple like the capitalisation, work in progress and the likes, where their recommendation would be within the month of completion, and I understand we're getting to a quarterly point now, which they've pointed out. Are they effectively saying that this monthly as a recommendation is just best practice, or we're happy with quarterly? How do I interpret what's there?
I mean, I guess at a basic level, it's what works when you get to year end. If it's all, tidy at that point. If we're, I mean, as Bruce said, if we were delivering a stellar annual report to them that was on time because we hadn't been mucking about with stuff after year end, and this is from my very non-accountancy point of view, they would probably give us some latitude on that, but at the moment they're recommending best practice for us because that's how they see we will deliver a better outcome at the year end.
Thanks, Scotty. Michelle.
I just had a question about the sensitive expenditure, I think it is, and it's probably relevant to this committee, and that we're not approving it on a one-up basis. It states to refer to the comments above, but I'm not sure if this is just a layout with the report, but it seemed that those comments related to February, But then we've got an audit update in December, so that would make me think we haven't fixed the problem. So I'm just wondering, have we fixed the problem or not? So this is on page 21 of the agenda. And the update in December 25 is C, comments regarding sensitive expenditure above, which I couldn't find any above, so I assume they meant the ones that are, I just got confused actually, and what I want to know is have we fixed the problem or not?
Thank you. Actually, I think CFO is not here. I had a discussion about this when this comment was given. So CFO said that she will advise the committee. So just to let the committee know that this policy has been finalized and it's actually effective from today.
So the policy is in place, but have we changed the practice? Because the auditor's comments would suggest practice was faulty.
I think the auditors, they can do a sample, and if the sample has anything wrong with it, as in the invoice is missing, from the car park or from some other small thing, then it comes here. It gets mentioned on a recommendation. Now, I would say 99% is one up. It might be the odd one that sneaks through with an invoice missing, and then they get picked up here.
So the auditor's comments are there's no support to verify approval of expenditure by the CEO and the mayor. So that would suggest that it's not just a sample problem, that there was
The CEO
that we don't
and the
have the
mayor
right practice in
the
place.
CEO and the mayor are not going to sign off every single piece of sensitive expenditure.
Sorry. I thought there was expenses by the CE and the mayor were not being approved by the mayor in the CE's case or the chair of audit and risk in the mayor's cases, which is how I thought the system worked.
So the mayor's can't be one up, it's me.
I thought that was the
No,
chair of the
It's me.
chair of the audit and risk, and the mayor signs off your.
The mayor
section.
signs off mine.
Yeah, but so I read this comment to suggest that that's not happening. Misinterpreted the auditor's comments.
Yeah.
The auditor's comment will be from their sample. That's what I'm trying to say, is there may be there may be one in the sample that creates that comment.
So there are a couple there that affect us, so it would be interesting to just know exactly what is the population on this one, Larry. I mean, I note there, apparently my expenses are a problem. I was not necessarily aware of that, so give me a yell. I'm very happy that we get ourselves out, and myself out of the headlines on that one. If I talk to the committee, I can, as far as I know, I've always signed off your expenditure. So I would be interested to know now that it's been raised, thank you for doing that, Michelle, what they are, because we have a pretty good system that I clear things by way of email with staff, so it would only be on the basis that you said that there was perhaps 1 month, and I wouldn't want to take ownership of that, but I might have to, that I might have missed a month. I find it very hard that I have, actually, in the course of the last financial year.
Sorry, I can't make it too much more exciting than it. It's not great reading, but it's probably pretty boring. But
yeah. So look, we're looking for. Apparently, we were sensitive, Narianne. Perhaps you could just find out exactly the point that I guess Nigel T's making, which is actually what are they, and are they just out of the sample, or is there a conclusion that there's a greater problem underneath this? So we need to size the problem, and if there's one or two matters, let's fix them. That would be good to have as an action item. I think we would need to clear that. Anything else that folk would like to raise? Michelle, that was your key question, was it? Okay. Can I then go to the resolution, please, which is that we receive and note the outstanding recommendations report. Who's going to move that for me? Thank you, Scotty. Thank you. Somebody else? Nigel? I'll put it. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against? It's carried. Thank you. So we can go the internal audit activity. Narianne, obviously most of the report comes under PX, but you'd like to give the public version, that'd be great, please.
Through you, the Chair, internal audit activities. The 2 audit reports are included in the PX, operational audit of Timor wastewater treatment plant, and the review of land information memorandum, LIM process. Currently, the review of customer service unit is in progress from 24th of November 2025. After the completion of customer service audit, I'll be conducting fleet management audit, and from my initial and further investigation, it has been revealed that fleet management audit has not been done in the council. This is something that will be done first time. IT audit is approved for the first year audit plan. It will be confirmed by the Chief Information Officer. And then after completion of fleet management audit, I'll be doing payroll audit. The internal audit 3-year completed plan is requested by the committee is also in the PX. And as part of the Fraud Awareness Week, from 17th to 21st November 2025, emails were sent to all the staffs on the 2 days of the week, emphasizing the importance of fraud awareness and each person's role in preventing fraud. Additionally, emails were also addressed to the senior leadership team on their responsibilities and their part in fraud prevention. Furthermore, for 1 week, computerized screensavers were featuring in, and policy reminders and general fraud guidance were displayed on all staff's computerized screen. Thank you.
Thanks, Narayan. Appreciate that. So good record, public record of how we're going in terms of progress. Folk, do you have questions for Narayan? Yes,
Yeah.
Janice?
Just an observation around IT audits. Great to get input from the Chief Information Officer, but I think that it's a bit like marking your own homework to some extent is the potential risk there. So I think it would be good to check in with, I don't know, one of the big 4, other councils around where they see the areas of most significant risk and consider what areas, and you probably have an idea of this anyway, Justin, which areas are most risky so that it's not just Justin saying what should be audited, it's a broader overview of it. And it probably goes the same a bit for the airport audit as well, rather than just relying on Andrew, just getting a broader view of where the risks might lie.
Thank you. That's a really good idea, Janice. Yes, because I was just wondering what an internal audit in IT, I mean, given it's just the heading, what it would engage, but we'll get also that a bit further over. Thank you for that. It's a very helpful suggestion. Okay, so we're going to move that we receive and we note the activity and the update of what will happen to 30 June 2026. I'm going to move that. Thank you, Michelle. You move, and Janice, you'll second. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against, it's carried. Righty, we got the real sensitive expenditure now, Stephen. I take it in lieu of Andrea, who by the way is an apology today. She's crocked the poor lady. Your comments, please.
Through the chair, this is the sensitive report for 1 July to 30th of September. It's all pretty straightforward. The majority of it is sort of staff support, so it's events and things. There's one miscoded thing here, and that's the Canva invoice for 179. That's actually for design software that's used to do all the screens around the organisation and to do publications for staff. Any questions? Happy to take them.
Thank you. Michelle?
Sorry, can you just remind me why a trade meet advertisement for a TDHL director would be considered sensitive? I found that a little bit unusual.
It's because it's done on a staff credit card. It just automatically bundled in here. Yep.
So going forward, because I've read another report somewhere, and forgive me if it's this committee or council tomorrow, we're replacing credit cards with P cards. Is that going to make a difference, or what's going to happen there? Because obviously you'll have far more transactions, and we don't want to see all of them in this report.
I think not, because they have a one-up approval in them, which these do as well, but I will have to... Actually, I'll have to be honest, I don't know. I'll have to ask.
We probably need to have a think about that.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think, Michelle, as I said in my induction, I think defining sensitive is always a bit of a pain in the neck. Is it because it's done on a credit card? To be honest, that's old-fashioned thinking. It's not a credit card, it's just a method of payment. I know it used to be susceptible to misuse, and I'm so old I've done investigations into the use of credit cards. But this is sensitive expenditure, particularly around expenditure which could be deemed or seen by others to be to some form of self-benefit rather than anything else, and it could be made by way of credit card, P card, it could be through a normal procurement process. Actually, that's to me the more I was about to say more on a wrong word. That's the more true way, in my view, with sensitive expenditure. So I suspect with this change there may be a bit of rethinking that has to go through what gets reported to here.
Yeah, correct. I've been talking about that for a while.
Yeah.
There needs to be a process put in place, and I'm not quite sure how you do it.
Most of the stuff should be. Advertising for a director for TDHL doesn't seem to me to be horrendously sensitive. If it needs to occur, if there's a vacancy, I don't need to be bothered over it.
We do base it on certain cost codes as well.
Yeah.
But most of those, because they're slightly ad hoc in nature, are put on credit card in that regard.
Yeah. Okay. So, folk, as I said, this has all been done through, it's all been approved. The question is our sort of antennae, is the tone of our spend right? That's what we're doing, and this is any comment folk would like to make before I look for a mover and a seconder. No, so the resolution is we receive and note. Do I have a mover and a seconder, please? Thank you, Nigel. Thank you, Scotty. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against, it's carried. Thank you. Rightio. We're going to, at this point, step over, thank you, the annual report, management report, debenture report, and the urgent item go straight to the continuous improvement. Sam, I see you sitting there, thank you. So if we could have the continuous improvement update, and then we will have the update on local government reforms. Thank you, Sam. Just before you talk, I probably need a bit of space. We're talking about something of our agenda, page 60 of our agenda, please. Thanks, Sam.
Thank you. I'll just provide an update on two of the items from the report. So Pulse HRIS is a human resource information system designed to streamline and integrate key HR functions. It comprises of 6 modules: HR core, recruitment, onboarding, learning and accreditation, performance and policies. 5 out of the 6 modules have been built, with user acceptance testing underway. Training will be delivered to all staff ahead of the planned go-live date in March. And Flowingly, the Flowingly risk module has been built with 2 risk reporting forms created, one for health and safety risks and the other for operational and strategic risks. User testing is currently underway with a small group of users from across the organisation, assisting with form testing and reviewing the reporting functionality. An update on the progress will be provided at the next Audit and Risk Committee meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, Sam. Appreciate that. Right, certainly some sizable projects here, and I'm appreciative of the closeout report. Good to see something being able to be closed off, which is great. If I do have questions for Sam. Yes, sorry, Michelle. Michelle first, then James.
I just wondered about the Civica Authority altitude update, and it feels like quite some time ago that we approved that, but maybe that's just time has passed.
I'll give a bit of a...
It'd be good to get an update on that, and will that get added to your report in future on where we're at?
Can I... so we're doing a bit of a health stock take of it, and we're going to be producing a paper for the Project and Procurement Committee, and we just want to ensure that the scope is exactly what we should need to be. There are bits of it that there's been some conversation about, do we need to do that bit or not? So effectively that will come back through to them. It's fair to say it's been approved, but people have been on leave most of the time, so we just need to make sure we get the right steering group across it. and we also make sure that we've got the processes rethought to actually make the most of it. The first, it's actually moving from authority to altitude has been the view that we do first to get it onto the new system, and then we start changing how we use it. Now that's going to be debated.
Because I had a question on that too, is when the paper was brought to council, the big gap for me was the project manager for that, and I just wondered if there was an update on that.
Yeah, correct. We have a project manager whom I'm not sure that person has been informed of it. Oh, you have. So Sam's going to be the project manager. So effectively, Sam's got a great IT background and also a accounting background, and also fantastic at making sure we're on project, on time. So that's only happened the last week, I think. So Sam, well done. And we need to make sure that we've got a really good connection between IT and accounting, the finance department, to get that really singing.
Will that be your full-time job? Because to me, when I saw that as a full-time job. So are you going to change out, so, because it's quite a big piece of work, isn't it?
Yes, I think that will be next discussion.
I think also the scope and how we populate the team needs to be worked up next, because you can't do it part-time from the finance department. You've got to pull people out, or you've got to backfill the project or the people. So that's happening in the next few weeks.
Janice, you've got a question?
Yeah, I was just, when I looked at this report, I was reflecting on what the actual purpose of bringing it to this committee was, and the purpose is, it says, to provide the committee with an update on the continuous improvement work programme. But for me, and it probably comes through another committee of council, was to see that roadmap of what the continuous improvement programme is, how all the systems and processes fit together. So I'm hoping that you councillors have that, and that we're just looking at the things that you've already approved and considered, and just checking that they're on track. But I did question what the actual reason for some of it coming here is, because some of it's quite small fry. The Smarty grants, for instance, is really small fry. Should it really be here? I didn't know that it should. Where does, if something's been approved, does it come back through another committee when it's finished to make sure that the benefits and the business case, etc., are actually realised and that the learnings are captured? That's just my ignorance of the processes.
So given the change since the last election, with the project and procurement committee has been formed, and a number of these projects that are of significance will be going there. I have to sort of agree that the understanding how the systems all fit together probably needs to be coming more regularly to council. What do you think about that, Justin?
Yeah, more than happy. I think you're quite right with your earlier comment on the work done. We're getting done on the ISSP. A lot of it's being project and time-based around the systems rather than a strategic focus. So I think that part we can definitely, there's really good progress happening in that. So in terms of how things fit together and what the program of works is, we'll be able to give some good information on that. And we're finalising a bit more of the high-level strategic side of things, which is why I didn't have anything this time around to show. But yeah, I think Nigel's correct on that.
I think, Nigel, we have a pretty strong interest in altitude. It is going to drive into particularly the matters we're going to discuss around annual reporting. I don't know the extent of attitude relative to our financial planning and financial strategy, or whether you bolt on an IBIS or something to it. I don't know. It's that sort of strategic issue and risk, if I could characterise it, Justin, that I think, again, going back to your point, Janice, I'd like to know, because I suspect that's the real sort of crunchy stuff that actually is good for continuous improvement, but actually is great for this committee, and it's with work to understand.
Because the issues that we have with the finance processes that show up in the annual accounts, the internal audit report on LIMS, for instance, where multiple departments cover, and the systems are really important in that regard. So I am hoping that you councillors do have a strategic understanding of it, because the risks are there if there are holes and gaps and things.
Are you able to give me a sense of when you'll finish implementing Altitude? It's wrong to look your way, Sam, if you've just been promoted, so I'm just interested to know. I mean,
there's actually two systems.
Yeah.
There's Altitude, and there's also, what's it called, the other thing? The reporting one?
Magic.
Magic.
Oh, Magic, okay.
And to be honest,
of course you've still got Magic.
Most of the councils will see the products coming out of Magic. So Magic will suck stuff out of Altitude.
Yep.
Produce the reports, and it's also going to be used for your forecasting and your budgeting and your modelling. When we went and met with
yes, sorry, just to be clear, you're using Magic for modelling?
Yep. Because Altitude is actually your stock standard GL and
I get that. I was thinking about that.
And the finance team went and visited, I think it was Palmerston North, somewhere like that. They don't have their budgets in their Altitude, they've just got them in Magic, because you don't need them in the one place. So effectively those sort of debates we've got to have.
Which gets me back to my final question. Sorry, I know I'm thrashing Altitude here, Nigel. How big a cultural change is it to move from authority as an enterprise and a platform to Altitude? Is it a significant change for staff?
There will be some. You can come and talk.
Yeah, so the GUI that you look at just looks slightly tidier. So there's most of the changes actually behind the scenes in terms of the fact that we'll be in the cloud rather than on-prem. So where the change for staff will come in is and the process change, like the online purchasing and so forth, so moving away from ESCA back into authority. Some of the additional modules like timesheetings and contractors module, so bringing those in. So that's new functionality that's coming in for staff, so that will be the big change. The day-to-day usage, what we expect after training is that they'll be using the tools more effectively and more efficiently. So that's a big part of the upgrade, is actual staff training and how the best case use and most efficient process.
So in a very broad sense, Jason, I call that cultural change. So
yes.
I'm always conscious that as we change things, you should never underestimate that you're asking people to do new things. And in fact, that's a really helpful point about what you've made, that actually we're looking for efficiencies out of this, people being more effective and efficient. So it goes back to, again, your point, Janice. I think that the thing I'm very interested in is actually what will it deliver in terms of improvement, not just the system, but what is it that it's actually delivering. I'd be very, well, again, I've made a noise about Altitude. I'd be keen to see that it comes out.
The focus of this Altitude is getting on the cloud and actually improving our financial systems. Altitude and its predecessor is much, much broader than finance. Can you give us some?
Yes, so the finance, well, there's maybe 35, 40 modules with an authority, say 10 or 11 of them are finance related. So
Fair point.
maybe 25% of authority is finance and the rest of it is regulatory and everything else that goes into it. So it's quite a big beast to up, but the focus for this upgrade really is around the financial. And hence I totally agree with Nigel that we do need a large commitment from finance to make sure that this goes really smooth. So.
Yeah. So thank you, and thank you for correcting me. Yes, you're quite right. I appreciate that authority is more than just finances, and I don't want to just focus on finance. You know, I'm interested in given that we see this, I am clearly interested in terms of finance at a broader level, but I'm also interested that we're implementing something here at probably some reasonable expense, and I don't need to know that number, but it will be a bit. Get this wrong, and we spend a lot of money, and staff aren't using it right, and we don't have the gains. That's a problem. And that's where I'd be keen that we, as a committee, have a wee bit of a focus. I appreciate you got your project and whatever it is committee that's going. I don't want to overstep the mark on there. I'm interested in terms of the improvement side and the gains that we make. Sam, thank you for that. That's been a very interesting discussion, and congratulations, by the way, if I've picked up the comments correctly. We'll soon look forward to thinking this through, and you can see perhaps, Janice, thank you for your comments about a broader sense of actually where this fits rather than perhaps just activity. So we are looking to receive and note the report. Do I have a mover and a seconder, please? Thank you, Janice. Thank you, somebody. Thank you, Michelle. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against, is carried. Brilliant. 5:10. Now, we're going to break at 12:30 for lunch. So this, I think, is indeed probably our final paper prior to lunch. Are we keeping our auditors up to date with where we're at? We are. Oh, great. Okay. I suspect this one is, well, it warrants 10 minutes, if not more. So let's deal with that if we can before we break for lunch. Stephen, I think I am in your hands.
Through the chair, this is just a basic receive and note paper giving an update on where we think the tsunami of local government reforms is sitting at the moment. It's really, really important to note here that these are mostly proposals at the moment. None of them have gone to the legislative state yet, so we are working on a mixture of promises and press releases and policy papers. There's 6 of note. The first one's the Systems Improvement Bill. This is the one that refocuses local government on a arguably small or large focus on core services, defines value for money, and it's also proposing a standard code of conduct and standing orders for councils. The biggest implication this will have is probably in our LTP prioritisation, so it will be what you're sort of morally and legally allowed to spend money on going ahead. It will also feed into the rates capping bit, which is the other part of the organisation, because there will be a fiscal limit put on you, so that there will be a limitation on what councils are meant to spend money on. The water reform is probably one of the biggest ones. TDC will be delivering its water and wastewater via water organisation by the 1st of July 2027. We have decided to do that, so we're on plan to do that at the moment. Stormwater will be retained in-house, so we're working through the ramifications of that. And we're needing to plan for growth capex in our AMPs pre-corporatisation, so that sort of is a way of ensuring that the company just doesn't decide to keep us in steady state, and it does actually build in growth. A big one, particularly for the mayor coming ahead, is the Simplifying Local Government plan, which is where 10 mayors go to Christchurch and try and agree something whilst running a regional council.
Get your hands on them.
Yeah. Whether that goes from working out what the purpose of local government is at that level, where all those regional things fit in there, and then working out what that looks like going ahead. If you've got questions about the development levies, which will replace development contributions and financial contributions, that will try and put a nationally consistent view on that at the moment. Mr Hackart here can probably answer more questions on that, as well as the RMA replacement work. I mean, a lot of this was just to highlight these, and that there will be a number of updates to the risk registers that fall out of these as we begin to understand the ramifications of them, and to allow you to discuss and ask any questions.
Thanks for that, Stephen. I appreciate that. Yes, it's interesting. Lots are at a suggestion stage which enable going to the national referendum. In other words, the elections as a promise rather than an actuality. But it'll be interesting to see where it goes. So do you have questions, comments to Stephen? Perhaps my 10 minutes isn't right. Oh, sorry, did you have a point you want to make?
I was about to say, they're interesting in the fact that many of them will stand on who goes into government next time round, although, as we know, single-term governments are pretty rare in this country. But they have ramifications on things like the LTP that we are thinking about now, so we do have to account for them. But again, the devil's in the detail when it comes to these things.
Mm. One of the things that, you know, perhaps I started when I got to the end of the report, which probably to some extent is associated with your important to note. This clearly creates, if I think in risk terms, this clearly creates uncertainty for us in some reasonably fundamental ways. Rates capping, so constraints. And if there was a policy that's popular probably on both sides of the House, it's rates capping, even though I may have views about the efficacy of rates capping. We have changes in water, along with development levies, etc. So, I mean, I'd argue that they're following a trajectory that we can anticipate now, whereas perhaps some of the other adjustments are more uncertain, but they probably have a level of reality. How would you suggest we take, this is my hospital pass to you, Stephen, and perhaps you're saying, well, we're going to have a workshop in March. How do you see this being integrated into our risk framework, our risk profile for Timaru?
So I think it will be about us defining how that impacts our risk profile. So, I mean, rates caps obviously a financial sustainability one, and what we can do to prepare the organisation to sort of land softly. If we know it's coming and it will be between 2% and 4% at this point, how do we sort of land the plane down to that point and make sure the organisation is on a sustainable footing at that point? So that means looking at how we deliver services, looking at our levels of service and all those things, so they have risk ramifications the whole way down the line. And that's, say, people's access to swimming pools, because probably the fees and charges will subsidise them less and that sort of thing. So these are big meaty problems that have probably made our current strategic risks a bit moot at the moment. So hopefully we'll bring the bones of this to you in March, but I'd actually sort of really ask the committee to feed into that, and where their knowledge of where things are at would feed into this and how that would shape those risks as well. As I said, we're not at a final state, but we do know what sort of direction it's going.
We've actually got quite a lot of risk here in that divestment, what are they called? The divestment levies, is that what they're called? Development levies. We're way on the back page on those, on the back foot. Other councils have been doing development contributions in the past. We haven't. We have got quite a significant amount of work to do in terms of water reform, massive amount on a short time frame. We've got 18 months to get that up and running. We don't have a spatial plan. Legislation with the RMA is that within 15 months of the legislation, we've got to have a regional spatial plan done, but a component of our district's spatial plan needs to be done. We've got 15 months to get it done. We've got to make sure that our systems are going to be smart enough to cope with whatever comes at us. So there's a lot of work in here that is actually way underestimated.
And it's as you say. I mean, I think it's work in a sense needed now.
Yeah, and
you know, I mean, I would argue, and this is why I'm a bit hot on modelling at the moment.
the modelling is vital.
I would be wanting to model what does a 4% rate increase look like.
Yep.
You know, and when you relate it to that it's in bill form, the simplifying one around core infrastructure, and to use vernacular, basic versus needed versus nice to have.
Yep.
I'd be wanting to think, what does that look like now? So it does seem put the pressure back on. Do we have the right modelling systems? Do we have the back office right? So that we can do that with agility.
We've reconciled all our employees to the right place. We're getting our allocation models resorted so as we can actually come out with much better, or want of a better word, P&Ls for each service that we provide. And I've got a feeling that'll throw up a few curve balls. And then that will lead on to, okay, how do we pay for this? Yeah, so, yes.
You're looking at, about allocating the balance sheets to them as well. Yeah, okay.
And then throw on top of that the overheads that are not going to be covered by water anymore.
That's right, exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
Bruce, what are other councils doing in terms of approaches that you've seen? Or is that what you're recommending here?
Oh, I think it's actually it's interesting. I mean, so you know, you sort of have to allow for the fact that we all had Christmas. So the work that was happening around the start of, and this is only my second committee for the trinium, if I can call it that way. I think it would be fair to say that pre the election there was a lot of, you know, this becomes the first issue. With this reform, are we going to submit on it as a council? I know that sounds a bit nutty, but you know, we could take the view, well, what is let's just deal with what's in front of us. But there's a question: are there reasons or grounds that we as Timaru City should be trying to form or influence the final form of this stuff? Now, you know, I don't know. I mean, are we submitting on the simplifying local government? And if so, what are we doing? Are we, you know, how does that influence what we see as beneficial for the Timaru ratepayer? So that's really where a lot of the resourced councils, if I want to be careful in saying that, were at prior to October last year. So that there is that question. But I know that at the time that we're talking September, October last year, councils that I consider thinking well about this were starting to think, well, what does this look like? You know, assuming that this is the form of what will come out of it, they're actually starting to plan on that basis. So that's why, you know, I would be honest, one or two of my well-resourced councils doing the annual plan, knowing that probably it's going to be 7 or 8%, may not be, now, we're also doing one at 4. And actually that was probably not a bad move, because I'm thinking one council that moved to the right and they're being told it's 3.8. So by the new council, by the way, Nigel, I'm not necessarily recommending that, but that's what they're doing. But so it's a combination of is there preload stuff we should be doing to influence? And actually, this seems to be the shape. Now's the time for us to integrate this into our thinking and planning.
So SLT's talked a bit about how do we free up some resource for some of the projects that will fall out of these, particularly RMA and spatial plans and so forth. How do you keep the BAU going? how do you also do the right forecasting so that and we talked about getting the foundations right, that our foundations are as solid as they can be to go into a new environment, including rates cap. You know, that simple conversation about our buildings, whether we do it at
That's
cost
right.
or valuation, has to come into it. Because if you're going to go down a revaluation mode, then you're going to have to get it well and truly done before 2029. So there's all those things that have got to come together. You've got to know exactly what you're doing. Now, to be able to say the rates for this coming annual plan is going to be 4%, well, that's nonsense. You've actually got to look at what your foundation is. What do you need to do to get yourself right for rates capping?
Agreed. So in risk terminology, I guess it would be interesting to, I've talked about uncertainty, and some of the councils are treating it as certain. In other words, it's an issue now. It's no longer a risk, it's an issue. We are going to have rates reform, rates capping. We are going to be spatially planning. We are going to be doing X. How do we get ourselves there? Is really the question. So, I think what I'm hearing from you, Nigel, is that actually there is an element of this to your SLT thinking at this stage. So there's a connection still between that thinking and this committee, I think, Janice, which is actually treating generally this as uncertain. Doesn't mean to say that you're not doing, your control to deal with that uncertainty is to do things like, what are my foundations like? What have I got to fix in my foundations so that I can deal with what is the final form and as that outcome becomes real? Feels difficult, actually. If I think I go back to, we want to implement altitude. We want to fix up these open action items. You know what I mean? And then we want to deal with this on top of this. It's actually quite a load. Agreed. Yeah. Yes. So that your annual report is not a problem this year because you've got other things you've got to be running with. Okay. Nigel, anything from the political side that you're observing from your colleagues in Canterbury in particular? If not south? I know you're more friendly towards the south than some.
I think we had a Mayoral Forum catch up on first workshop on it on Friday, and basically from the consensus from that was our next workshop, which is next Friday, which was going to be on the sort of plan for Canterbury and regional, looking at regional deal and all that sort of stuff. That's sort of been gazumped by this reform, and I think very much will be the focus of the forum / into CTB, whatever that looks like. I think there's maybe, I think the approach, generally speaking, is this is going to happen. There's the odd one in the room that thinks, hey, it's not legislation yet, and that'll be one of the challenges, I think, as we're being told by central government to do it within existing budgets, and we're all thinking the existing budget is the ECAN budget, but you've got democratically elected people that are going to have to provide that budget back to a CTB. So there's some interesting challenges in there, but I think the majority of mayors were open for change, but there is a couple in there that will be, focused on boundary protection, etc. So I think that's, why it's you've just got to follow the process a little bit. It's actually well documented, I think, in the short government, 20-pager does show a process by what to do, by how to, get to the end point. Well, part of that is for us to be fit for purpose, isn't it? We need to be firing on all cylinders, so that's the approach Nigel and his team are taking, which I think is great, and I'm confident that they're on the right track there. And then, as a CTB or wherever it ends up, and we're talking about some of the submissions tomorrow so we can get a collective position here, but I think we'll be stronger if we have a collective voice and can keep that consensus amongst ourselves. But I think generally there's some pretty good, probably good opportunity, and I think generally speaking we're pretty aligned there, and then we'll just have to follow the process and step through it, and the data and the analysis on all the options will be key. So although everyone wants to get ahead of themselves and put up new boundaries and what have you, what's quite refreshing is there's lots of councils on the boundary edge that are open to boundary change, as far as why tack on, and do they sit in Canterbury in its entirety or in Otago, those sorts of conversations. So generally refreshing, but there'll be a couple of struggles, and that's why actually the voting mechanism at the end of the day will be really key, because there'll be some that just don't get what they want. And so that's how it's going to have to be worked through, is through democracy, and that's it's a fascinating challenge. But quite fun to be a part of too, isn't it?
I think we had an organisation called the Kingdom of Timaru would be right.
Well, I think we're probably, I think we're probably in a position whereby we know this area is going to grow no matter what. We're in a position where most of us, I think the majority of our governance aren't wed to Timaru, and the fact that we're open to boundary change, and let's just get the best. And I think it's just understanding what decisions need to be made at what level, on all things. And then and the opportunity for this is actually, down the track, is if you've got fit for purpose local government that central government's confident in, then you potentially into the future can get decentralisation of different function. But until we're there, you're never going to. So, I think it's an uncomfortable road we have to travel for a potentially better future.
So what I'd like to see, Stephen, if we think about this from your paper's a tremendous prompt, is if we think about this in risk terms, I think for our March, let's argue March workshop on risk, this clearly, I agree, is a risk area, and let's call it legislative reform, sector change, whatever you want to call it. I'm sort of semi-relaxed. What I'd like to think we do there is actually, so in naming the risk, actually, what are the controls, which are often activity by the sounds of it, that we are actually undertaking, whether it's identifying the foundations, whether it's starting spatial planning, whether it's whatever it is, those are aspects which are helping us deal with the uncertainty that's in front of us. There'll be a residual uncertainty of a high number that's in front of us, but it just gives us the chance then to it is a strategic risk. Let's not debate that. It will be a strategic risk, but then start to get a handle on how this committee can help. To go back to your word, thank you, Nigel, opportunity that this change presents for us. Are we doing things in the right way? It gives us then the right thing to bounce off then our committee in terms of going forward. Any other comments or questions folk would like to make? No? Can I just ask one question? And you said you had your development levy person here. I just wanted to remind myself. Hello, somebody down there? Keep looking that way. How are you? Bruce is my name. Can you just two questions? In paragraph 41, we're saying that the levy will operate at an area level. Can you tell me what an area level is?
Yeah, so the proposal talks about widening development levies compared to contributions and being able to operate across a whole network, but then having within that specific network sub-areas which have been flagged as higher cost. So I guess for lack of a better term, you pay the growth component for joining to the Timaru urban water reticulated network, but then if you're within a specific subzone of that, and there's a higher cost associated with works, you can have another levy on top of that.
That's discretionary or required?
It's discretionary, so you can effectively go through your consultation process and set the areas within the context once you have pulled all the data and the information to support that.
Brilliant. Yeah, when I say it makes more sense to the paper, actually it's my understanding that it's helped. And just remind for me, how will the water organisation get its equivalent of a development levy?
Yeah, so the development levies will be open and available to the water organisations as well.
Yeah.
And that becomes one of the challenges when you've got multiple councils within the same organisation, and that there will need to be nuances within that policy that applies to them as well.
Yes, I've argued at a political level. Just remember the first bill that goes out from a water service organisation is actually your bill, and you will be, in a political sense, accountable for it because you created the water company in the first place. But having said that, thank you for that. So the water organisation has essentially the same capacity for a development levy, albeit I presume it's got to fit within the price path rules.
Yes, and there's talk within the discussion document that the development levies will be audited by the Commerce Commission or someone along those lines. So I imagine the two audits will work hand in hand through that price path.
Well, to be honest, it's an uncertainty for us in terms of local government, but I think increasingly we may well see the role of the Commerce Commission within local government land, let alone the water service companies and what have you. But that's just a pick on my part, which is conjecture. Okay, so bottom line is, thank you for that, and thank you for being here. That's really useful because I think what I'm hearing, Nigel, you're saying that from a financial strategy perspective, if I understood the historical reasons, we haven't levied development contributions on the basis it was seen as a competitive advantage not to. But as we look for funding tools, I'm not surprised that you're looking at development levies properly. So interesting to know how it goes. I could be totally I'm talking about old Timaru in those days. Okay, that's really useful. We've got a way forward with this as well too, Stephen. So your paper has been really useful. Thank you for stimulating discussion. So we're just going to receive and note the update. I'm going to move that. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Michelle. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against, it's carried. Right, I've gone from 10 minutes to taking 20 minutes. I'd like to suggest that we limit ourselves to ideally a half-hour lunch, if that's okay. You folk comfortable with that? So if we could aim to be here at 2, here at 10 past 1, I think that looks like about half an hour. It's quarter past, sorry. If we can be here at quarter past 1, that'd be great. Be here at 10 past, that means we'll start at quarter past. Okay, folk, I wonder if we could call a wee bit of order. I am conscious that we should probably move on. It's personal, that's personal, but if we could, that would be helpful to me. I'd just like to acknowledge that we've got, I think I saw correctly, Judy, who's Judy? Rudy and Jenna. I think I'm making a mistake there in my, some form of spoonerism, I think. Rudy and Jenna online, welcome to the meeting, you guys. Happy New Year. Good to see you guys here as well. I think, I would hope, Rudy and Jenna, you're aware that we had changed our program. So we've got a whole bunch of stuff here to just work through, for which we obviously invite your participation as well. But just for clarity for the meeting and yourselves, we're going to deal with, Stephen, the annual report debrief and what's come out of that, which I think would be useful. We'll deal with the management report, Rudy and Jenna. After that, we'll also then deal with the debenture trust audit report, hopefully reasonably straightforward. And then we've accepted as an urgent item the letter of engagement for 26-28. We'll deal with that. At that stage, we're ready to go into PX, and the first item up will be our chance to have auditor-only time with you, Rudy and Jenna. So that's the order of the next piece of the meeting. Stephen, I think we're into your paper, please.
Through the chair, I'll take the report as read, noting it wasn't the accountant that wrote it, it was the GM corporate, so there might be some financial stuff in there that doesn't make 100% sense. The long story short version of it, it was, we got it over the line for the second day in the running, but it was through sheer brute force and goodwill and work by staff and audit. There was a lot of goodwill in there, and I just want to take the opportunity to thank the audit team because they helped us get over the line. It's not always been that way in the past, but I think it's not at the moment we are following a process that has a cost in both staff well-being and real financial cost as we put time in. It has a cost at the audit side of things as well. So, I mean, I've gone through various recommendations at the end, but a lot of it is just getting the document to a higher standard at an agreed date, including involving audit and risk into that a lot more, so it's actually getting some agreement as to what an agreed quality is prior to audit and if it's audit ready or not, and whether we are not scared at that point to delay the audit. Because at the moment we are focused on getting it signed off by a date, and if it's going to audit needing a lot more, if it's going to audit not needing confirmation but correction, it's probably not a good approach to have at that point. So a lot of the process now, I would say we need to have agreed delivery dates of things, and if we aren't meeting those, we probably need to. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Stephen.
I'm following instruction from Audit Risk Committee.
Stop that sentence, but keep going. You're welcome to keep going.
Yep. So, and then before that end-year date, it is things. It's the things we've been talking about for some time. It's having agreed what group consolidation and subsidiary info is. There's a misunderstanding between us and our subsidiaries about what information we expect for them to produce for us and in what format. We're leaving that to the last minute as well. It needs to come down from governance, actually, because staff can't really tell our subsidiaries what to do as such. Capitalisation, as always. Ensuring our policies are really mainly the accountant's policy and the governance ones, and ensuring they're all aligned, and ensure that supports the disclosures. And then we had a reasonably new team doing it for the past 2 years, so there are just some training gaps we've identified, so we need to just fill those as well. As I said, we've got it over the line, and for the second year on our own, I do think that needs to be acknowledged, but I think there is a lot of process improvement to happen within that.
Well, Stephen, firstly, I'd like to just thank you guys, and I'm focusing here on the Timaru team. I appreciate that Rudy and team have done good work too. But this is a pretty honest assessment, and you've looked in the mirror, and it does say there are things that need to be picked up on. Otherwise, I think what you're saying is we don't plan to do something different. We're going to get the same, if not the worst, result. And, you know, Rudy's patience might diminish. So thank you for the honesty of that. And I wonder if you could, I could just ask that you pass that back on to Andrea, who can't again be with us today because of illness, and her team. I do appreciate that they've done this. It's a pretty good, honest piece of work, to the extent that actually you've said the magic to my words. When I looked at by the time I got and read the table, I said we need a project plan. The challenge that I see here, and if I want to support Janice here, Stephen, in terms of good accounting, we need this, not because of legislative compliance. We need this out of the way. And I mean, you know, we could put a September date on it, we could put an end of October date on it, but it can't be November or December, because that's when we should be focused on a whole bunch of other stuff, I think is the critical thing. So this project plan is going to have to run parallel, isn't it, with the next annual report.
Yep.
Process. And in fact, obviously the project plan wants to try and front load stuff as much as we can prior to dealing with that annual report. How can we help you? I'm very happy to oversee this. I mean, when I say I'm very happy to delegate somebody to oversee this, Scotty. Sorry, that was you didn't realise your appointment to this process. No, look, in all seriousness, I'm very happy that we encourage solution-focused, you know, all that's a drama, to get this one going.
Yep.
What do you need from us?
I would say it's an iterative process. Year one, we had a new audit team. We had a new team writing it. Again, we brute forced it through. Year two, we learned some stuff. So I think it's about, I think once we bring the project plan back to you agreeing with that and then holding us accountable on the dates a lot more. And then from that, we can filter down to the wider organisation that we expect these things to be done, because there is the expectation that we will be adopting this on the date and it will be clean copy. A lot of it is just us getting our house in order when it comes to sign-off processes and stuff. And not to make any excuses, but the end of 25 with an election and various other reasons was not the perfect.
Yeah, it wasn't conducive, was it?
Not the perfect environment to be process improving like this, so we should have a slightly more clear run at it this year. A lot of it is just that holding us accountable at the end of the day, because the only improvements we can do are our end, really, rather than yours.
Right, before I open up for further conversation, I'd just say a good project plan also has a project risk attached to it as well, and the key strategic risk is we've got people to focus on this, as well as also do BAU. That'll be the most critical thing, and how do we manage that? Folk, do you have questions or comments for Stephen? Yes, Michelle.
I'm just wondering what holding to account looks like, because you could argue that's what we've been trying to do for 2 years and we've all failed. So I'm wondering how this is going to look different going forward.
I'd say we've grasped the nettle, and the CEO has as well. He has set a high expectation of us at this point. So he has listened. At the end of the year, we run headlong to year end, and then we try and tidy up at that point. So it's just starting earlier and making those larger organisational culture changes that support that as well as part of the piece. This is a problem that has been complained about since I started at the council nearly a decade ago. So whether or not our systems are in place or our culture's wrong or things like that. But we're the latest team holding it, and to be honest, we are sick of setting the alarms off at night here, so we are grasping the nettle to try and fix it.
That was probably fairer if I questioned the committee rather than you, but thank you. I do have another question in the report though, and I wonder, you know, and you've talked about it yourself with the CCOs, is it feasible, given our focus on efficiencies going forward, is it feasible for us to prepare the financial reporting for the CCOs, and would that make the consolidation process easier?
Yep. So TDHL, because they're not using public benefit standards with certain things, and say Alpine with not revaluing the bill, there's some complications in there by us all doing things slightly differently. I think it's about setting the expectation of when and how TDHL delivers the information to us. And actually, as Rudy suggested at a different day, actually not waiting for the final signed off reports to get going. We're waiting we're waiting to the last minute to get the perfect information in before we start working on it. So that's almost too late at that point because we're deep into audit by then. So it's about, I think it's about working on a common understanding of who does what, because at the moment there's obviously a misalignment. And at some point, and that's one area where possibly governance can help, and that your letter of expectations, you could say you will deliver this then.
Because you do Dunedin City Council, and I know that, because I'm on Aurora, we get very clear delivery dates that we have to deliver stuff up to Dunedin City Holdings. So you might have some insight to share with how it is still a bit of a scramble, but not like this.
Yes, Janice, Stephen and I have discussed, I've given some input into the paper, and it is very relevant that, very important that the Timaru District Council as ultimate parent provide a detailed timeline and a list of requirements to TDHL. It can go down to the extent of TDHL actually correcting their financial statements to push it into a public benefit entity format so that the adjustments that relates to how they treat investment properties or how they treat land and buildings, etc., doesn't actually fall onto TDC staff. It's actually done at the TDHL level. So the more detail the actual instructions of the parent to TDHL is, the better I think things will go, because I did find this year that there was too much uncertainty as to, who's responsible for what.
We after all need it, Janice, for group accounting responsibilities, so TDHL need to feel that they're part of that group. I'd argue, Stephen, we need a better relationship with TDHL, and I would suggest one of the ways we could help you is through this committee. I think it'd be quite good to meet Fraser. I've never met him.
Yep,
I think it'd be useful that it's not about anybody on the mat. This is actually about we've got mutual joint accountability here.
I think it's about providing some clarity as.
Yeah.
If you'd ask TDHL, it's probably our responsibility. If you ask us, it's TDHL's responsibility, and the truth lies in the middle somewhere. But as long as we're clear at the start of the process rather than trying to work out at the end of the process, it's where we can really tighten up things like this.
Yeah. And I would think, and I'm reflecting both from, gee whiz, Rudy, it's decades ago now, auditing Dunedin City, standard templates, total understanding, as you say, around accounting policies and now adjustments that need to be made. I actually would be surprised if, for you as a board, wouldn't be expecting a draft set of accounts, which are pretty darn good, but won't be finalised, that actually we could consolidate on. So there might be one or two changes, but actually that's just normal group accounting. I think that's all we're wanting out of ourselves, and TDHL is just good old normal group discipline. And I would think I agree with you, it's about specification, but actually I think it's also about relationship, to be honest, Stephen, if I can give you some advice there as an old man. So I think that would be important that we focus on that one as well. Yes, Michelle, I thought I saw a second light down the line here.
I was just going to say, given, that you've suggested that needs to be done at a governance level, should be an LOE already sent. Should we be adding that to the agenda for the first workshop we have with TDHL? Because it can't be us just sitting here going, this is how we want it to happen. And so I think we should be putting that on the agenda for the workshop so we can have that discussion with them and come up with a plan. And that way you've got governance sitting around the table.
Yep, that sounds valuable. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a resourcing issue. Someone has to do it. Whether they do it or we do it is... Yep.
They've got the knowledge, the detailed knowledge. Otherwise, somebody here has to have that detailed knowledge. Now, in Invercargill, small council, the TDHL equivalent CFO accountant sits in the ICC accounting team. But they have specific knowledge of ICHO. You've got to work that one through. Nigel, I think you were wanting to say something. You're welcome to.
No, but it gets down to whether the CA firm is over the top of public benefit organisations as well. So,
or do they have external providers?
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
That needs to be worked through as well.
Stephen, support from us, and this goes back to my throwaway but serious line that Scotty's on the project team. You need to meet fortnightly. That's why I don't think if we do this quarterly at this meeting, it won't work. You've got 2 meetings to get this right. Okay, with us.
But this shouldn't need governance. This is stock standard.
Well, I'm trying to offer other people's time. What I'm trying to reflect here, what creates the momentum? What creates the change? Is it that I write a letter saying, Stephen, you will, which I don't like. I could do it, but it doesn't strike me as being. What is the supportive way that we live with the great gains you're talking about? New team, new audit, which has been great to involve us, but how now do we affect real change? What is the best way to do that it gets done?
I think there's a strong willingness to change from the team itself because we do take some professional pride in it and we are aware that it's not working at the moment as well as it possibly could. So there's that. I mean, outside of audit and risk, there's also council and projects and performance committee oversight, which could actually be, you could just drop the annual report into that committee as well, that would provide that level of regular.
Yeah.
And it would stop the risk of us saying it's fine in March and then it's a disaster at the next meeting and then it's all over in October. So I mean, that could probably provide that level of oversight without fortnightly trip from Scotty here.
Sorry, I don't believe we need governance involved in this.
Yeah, okay.
There is absolutely no reason why we cannot achieve this. Last year we said, before the 30th of June, just about quite a chunk of the annual report should be done. For whatever reason we didn't achieve that, so that's the starting point. So therefore it's actually SLT need to own this, not the governors.
I agree with you, Nigel, because on reflection, what happened to us as councillors was that day that Rudy and were online and we were actually unaware that there'd been all of these issues. So we were quite blindsided by that. However, Rudy did inform us, because I look back at my notes, that he had raised concerns with the CE, the acting CE, and the chair of this committee, which as a councillor we were unaware of. So whilst we thought everything was going smoothly, it was identified it hadn't. So that day was quite challenging for, I'm sure, the new councillors that had just arrived, and even the ones that had been there for the last 3 years. So I agree with you. I think this is very operational. The only time that governance needs to be aware of it is when things are going wrong, and that's what happened. We weren't aware. And so that's what I feel needs to change, is that communication with governance and whatever committee it's going to sit on. Because even this report, it identifies areas, and whilst, Bruce, you say there's a project plan, there's no one held accountable to it. There's no names, there's no one saying who is leading this, and that is where I feel that went all wrong.
Sorry, I agree with you. I didn't say there was a project plan. I said this needs a project plan.
Oh yeah, well, that's what I was going to say.
There
is a review.
When I got to the table, this clearly needs a project plan.
Yeah, well, this report also does not. Who was actually in charge? Because it seems there's a lot of blame on a team, but at the end of the day, this is in their job descriptions, I would have thought, and this is their job. And so there needs to be significant change, and we're in January, and I'd like to think that all of these are under control and ready for when the audit team comes in, because we can't just keep going like this. So hopefully we are working in the background right now on fixing these to be audited.
Righty. Okay. Look, I want this to probably conclude, but with the basis, Stephen, that I'm going to back you guys. Nigel, I back you guys saying this is an operational issue. Absolutely happy to do with that. My idea of Scotty or somebody else was actually just to have visible support to you guys. It is clearly an operational matter. So March, we have a project plan. We understand who is the individual sponsor, who is the individual project manager, and how that's going to operate. With the view that actually the actions that are required through this project plan at least identify when they should be achievable by, but with the view that it's going to have a beneficial impact on a separate project plan that you will need to have, which is around the annual report. I'm relaxed as to us versus the project committee. I take your advice on that. All I'd reflect here, Stephen, is we control the relationship with the auditors. So, to be honest, the final say sits here. Having said that, actually, the final say sits with council, to be perfectly honest, but I mean they need it from a recommendation from us. We'll keep it at the quarterly side, that's fine. Having said that, particularly as you start to project plan the annual report, think about ways in which we could fit in as a committee, perhaps better than we have in the past. For instance, Stacey, your point about communication even involving me, which wouldn't be a bad idea. So let's just think that one through. That requires a wee bit of footwork between now and our March. Is that okay?
Yeah, that all seems reasonable. Yeah. If there's any other aspect to this, I mean, this paper is brought as reasonably high level, but we can then drill down into a project plan for it. If there's aspects that you think are missing from that are obvious as well, that we've overlooked, just send them through to me.
Yeah, well look, you're welcome to circulate outside the meeting. Alan will respond. And I'd actually think you should also take and Rudy in general on that project plan. As we said, it's not, well as I'm saying, it's not necessary to address the outstanding open action items, although clearly this project plan will again start to get some of the really big issues that are inside the open action items that we need to deal with. So that'll be good.
Yep, I think between this and the open action items, it does provide a bit of a roadmap for us.
Yes.
Whether we can solve every single thing before now in October is a different matter.
Brilliant.
But we can try.
Be wonderful. Okay, so we're going to note the lessons learned, and again, my deep appreciation that you're being prepared to, in a sense, bear your soul today as a team with us over the issues, and we endorse the proposed improvement actions outlined, noting it will be supplemented or complemented by a full project plan, which should be great. I'll move that. Do I have a second? Thank you, Michelle. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against, it's carried. Thank you. Brilliant. Okay, the audit management report. Stephen, any key comments, or will I hand it over to Rudy?
I'll defer to our friends and colleagues in Dunedin for this one. So we've added the new recommendations from this report to the report that you saw earlier.
Yeah.
So I can pass to
No, I appreciate that. I realise you've done that, so well done. Appreciate that. Rudy, can I invite you and Jenna to raise any matters you feel you need to in terms of the management report, please?
Thank you, Bruce. Just want to make clear up front that we issued two reports. One is the report to the council, which is on page 37. And then we also issued a more detailed report on operational findings to management, and that report set out the status of the prior year findings, and it also set out the new findings. So just a summary, in that report we have 16 new findings. We have 15 open or in progress findings, and then we have 8 closed findings. So client or staff made quite a good effort to actually close some of the longer outstanding findings. And that report is available to councillors if they so wish. So our audit report...
Rudy, excuse me, Rudy. Sorry, you've got a question, Janice?
Yeah, Rudy. I noticed that Audit New Zealand have split the reports to governors and to management. Is there a reason why you did that?
Yes, we were instructed to do it. I guess would be the...
Well, I guess that's a good reason.
Quick answer, but fair to say, governors should only be interested in sort of the top level control-related big ticket issue items. And there's a lot of minutiae that makes it into the report sometimes that takes it away from the important stuff. So, you know, whether a bank reconciliation wasn't reviewed in time or, a specific invoice wasn't signed is really an operational issue. And I think, you know, when governors are confronted with a management letter that's 50 or 60 pages long, it does lose its impact. And I think that was at the heart of making the decision to split. And also it allows us to actually get a report out to council on the day that the audit opinion is signed. So councillors can actually have confidence that, the opinion is whatever it is. So I think that was sort of the two main reasons why we split it.
Just in other organisations where those reports have been split, both of them have been provided to the boards, just because we're used to seeing it. But I think you're right, it does focus you on the high level stuff, but sometimes you also want to understand what's happening underneath, and that report to management does provide that. Now, we got that information, Stephen, but it was reinterpreted from Rudy's report.
We can upload that to the hub for councillors and we can email it to you.
Thank you for that, Janice. Yes, thank you, Rudy. We stopped you mid-course, but I thought it's important to take the questions as they come. Thank you.
Yes, so I will take the report as being read. Just a couple of comments on page 43, where we talk about the quality and timeliness of information provided for audit. There are some red and orange grades, so attention and acceptable. And I think what the audit team have worked through with Stephen and with Andrea over the last couple of months should move some of those grades into potentially the good area, at least that's the hope. And on page 44, just a comment on the first item there, governors challenge the process and the outcome of management's judgments. So ultimately, the responsibility for the financial statements, for the annual report, rests with council. And the point I made to Stephen is that when the timetable is developed for Audit and Risk Committee input or council input, it should allow for the Audit and Risk Committee to actually interrogate the financial statements, definitely before it's sent to the full council for adoption. So I recognise there are only, I don't know how many Audit and Risk Committee meetings in the year, but definitely the annual report that's going to be put up for adoption to council should go through the Audit and Risk Committee. And I've always found that councillors, when they look at an annual report, do identify things that we as auditors or members of staff who's got a financial background don't always pick up. So it is valuable to have that sort of level of oversight over the draft annual report before it's submitted to audit. I know it's not always possible because of timing, but I think when you develop the timeline, that those two areas, once before the report goes for audit and once before it's actually presented or it goes to council for adoption, there should be some sort of oversight. If we can fix that, then I think the conversations we have at the adoption would be less heated, because there would be, I guess, more ownership being taken of the actual document and the process.
And Rudy, that could be as simple as a work paper on some of the key judgments that have been made coming up through here, so that
Exactly.
they can be endorsed.
Exactly. Now, Bruce, I don't have anything else. I'm happy to take any questions from councillors on the report.
Thank you, Rudy. It is clear, and I do endorse the high level versus the detailed, although perhaps in future we just circulate the detailed, so those that maybe want to read it, they can. That's no big drama. Questions for Rudy, Jenna, you guys? Anything else to add? Yes, go Stacey.
Mine was just around the commentary on page 45, when you said that you had to review 7 versions of the annual report, and I presume that's high because you had only in your costings thought you were going to do 2. So there's obviously a cost recovery of about $80,000 for the additional work done. So 7 annual plans, is that a lot in your world, Rudy, or is that what happens in councils?
It is a lot. I think when Stephen spoke earlier about, or Nigel spoke about things that they can change, there are some easy things. And one of the biggest things that occupy us is just making sure that the annual report, A, complies with the Local Government Act, and B, is internally consistent. So that's not too difficult to achieve. There's probably a third one that I think links back a bit to the complexity of the FMIS, which is making sure that there is sufficient support for the material numbers in the notes. So if those 3 things can be sorted, that'll remove a lot of the time that we actually spend on the annual report. The annual report is a massive document. So every time there's a substantive change, there's a lot of work that actually has to go in to make sure that that change has been made everywhere where it should have been made. So, to answer the question, yes, seven versions of the annual report is a lot. It's not unusual in some councils. Some councils can go even more. But if I think of Dunedin City, for instance, we do 2. So, with the appropriate level of upfront work and input from people that are not necessarily all accountants, we can get to a position where the report that comes to us is at least internally consistent and complies with the Local Government Act. That's sort of the number one.
Thanks for that question, Stacey. There are some really good nuggets in there in terms of what constitutes, you said, Stephen, what constitutes quality. and those three items that Rudy said should be a given with it. So they're worth capturing. Do you have more questions, Stacey? No. Okay.
I think the other side too is potentially there are drafts sent to audit that probably should never have gone there.
Yeah,
So that's got to be thought about as well.
I sensed that during the last audit, actually, if I can be honest. Not that it shouldn't. I wouldn't say it shouldn't have gone, but I think what I heard was a misunderstanding at the release between yourselves, Rudy and Jenna, and the team as to what constituted a draft. Bottom line is we've got a hell of a good look, and ultimately there'll be a project plan here which is around improvement, which hopefully will deliver so that we have a focus on that. Just remind me, sorry, Rudy, what's ISA 600?
The new group, the group comments.
Oh, group.
That's the new governing group reporting.
Brilliant, thank you. Okay, so look, very clear report. I sense we're out of questions. Can we move to the recommendation, please, which is that we receive and we note the recommendations identified are added to the external auditor's open recommendation. Well, we've seen that. We've already done that. A question from me, does Rudy's report go to full council? We already talked about Communication Day, Stacey, and I'm just wondering, because this would be the sort of report that could or should go to full council. I think, this is high level, this is the auditor saying, blah, 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 blah. Hey, this is a couple of areas you need to really tick up on, like our service performance. It would be logical for it to go up to council as well.
Yep. I mean, it also underlines some of the discussions we have at council about the appropriateness of our LTP measures. A lot of those are done in, reported in the annual report, and can actually cause some problems trying to get the information out of departments to do it. So whether they are appropriate or realistic or manageable this puts it front and centre so they can think about that as they go into the next LTP process.
Well, I'd make an open offer without over-egging it to be online for the day that gets taken to council, because it might be useful for them to hear from the committee what this all means. So I'd leave that as an offer as well. So, look, no resolution over that, but I just want to, as we go, resolve it. I think that would be good, because this is very helpful. It would be different if it was the big full report. It'd be lost, if I can be honest, but I think this is a good high-level report, which, again, thank you, Rudy and Jenna, makes a lot of sense from my perspective. Okay,
Bruce, can I just comment?
Sorry?
Can I just add a comment?
Yeah, go for it, Rudy.
So in going back to Janice's earlier question of us splitting the reports, the requirement is actually, if we split the report, by the time council comes to actually adopt, that they should have the comfort. So by that time, council should actually have seen this report. So it's for us to work through what is the best way to actually make sure that happens. Because if I issued the report, say we sign the opinion on the 31st, I issued the report on the 31st. Council may not have had time to actually digest it, before the opinion is signed. So the idea was council can take comfort from that report when they adopt the opinion. What is the timeline then that we need to actually get this report out to councillors so that they have that comfort? And that's probably an internal discussion.
Good point. You issued this report at the same time we received your opinion, correct, Rudy?
That's correct, but it was sent not to council. It was actually sent to, I think it may have been Nigel or Stephen and Andrea. So it was sent to management because this was new and I wasn't sure what would happen if I suddenly sent this out to councillors on the day. So, but this year we need to change it. We need to make sure that
I think we do.
Councillors are a favourite on the date.
Yeah, elsewhere we receive this report along with the opinion at the council meeting. I think it's a good way to do it. Okay. With that, then, we have those resolutions. Have a mover and a seconder, please. Thank you, Janice. Thank you, Scotty. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against? It's carried. Right, the Debenture Trust report. Reasonably straightforward. Stephen, do we need to have any discussion on this at all? He says, quickly.
Not really. All this report does is it outlines the security stock we hold. It covers the debt we hold with the local government funding agency. It's important to note that the number for the 26 billion in there, that's held as a group of guarantors, not this council alone, so we would never be called on that one. We've got security stock of 250 million, which covers the lending we have from there. It got a clean and unmodified audit, so it's good to just receive and note.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on this? There being none, we have Rudy's opinion. We also have the PwC copy of their report about the register, which was a useful read as well. The recommendations are we received the Dementia Trust report, we received the audit report, and we note that Audit New Zealand has issued an unqualified opinion. I'll move that. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Nigel. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against is carried. So we now deal with the urgent item. So I don't know whether it's got a number or not, but it's what we're going to do as the urgent item, which is the audit terms of engagement. Now, you folk do have that on your systems or separately in hard copy, correct? I have, yes. Yeah. It's a very solemn document when you read about what your responsibilities are. Stephen, I'm sorry. That's not a throwaway line. Actually, they put it squarely what we need to do. Stephen, is there any comment you'd like to make? Otherwise, I'll ask Rudy just to perhaps give a few high-level comments.
There's no additional comment from us. It just outlines the expectations we both have of each other.
So the engagement letter is one where we have a medium-term relationship with Rudy as the Auditor General's representative to undertake our audit here at Timaru District Council and Group. And this is setting out the expectations. So we talked about an LOE with TDHL. There's really a reality that this is a letter of expectation to us. So that's why it has a level of solemnity to it, particularly when you start looking at the responsibilities. And it's for 3 years. It's I think if I got it right, it's the standard engagement term for Audit New Zealand with the Auditor General with a particular client. Rudy, Jenna, is there anything you guys would like to add? Otherwise, I'm happy to paraphrase a couple of things.
No, not really. This is as you say, a very standard letter. It's a contract between the Auditor General and the Council. I have no leeway to make any changes, but if there's any concerns, then I'm happy to hear that and then take it back to the LAG.
Stephen, I have no concerns, by the way, Rudy.
It's just to note it's only 2 years. I think that was to
it's only 2 years.
Reflect the changes.
It's normally 3. Is it only 2 years, Rudy?
I think that was to reflect the changes that were coming in local government, probably, and
okay.
What
right,
like
sorry,
that.
my mistake. It is only for 2 years. Look, I tend to I never like. I've just done it with the debenture trust deed. Sorry, but I never like passing over anything too quickly. There's a sense to which Rudy's letter is standard. I mean, if we're not prepared to sign this, actually, to be honest, all hell breaks loose with the Auditor General, because he would have something. That's a he at this stage would have something to say to Parliament about Timaru District Council. Okay, because the arrangements, in some sense, are normal, but while the front end is reasonably important, it does show the extent and limitation of what is the auditor's responsibility around our annual report. What it really comes back to is, and I don't believe we wouldn't have had this original paper that you shared with us, Stephen, if we had this view, but there used to be a view, well, these accounts are just the auditors, they tell us what to put in there. If we hold that attitude, we're in for a fright. Okay, so the report is really saying we acknowledge, this is what Nigel would do in terms of signing this letter, we acknowledge that the responsibility for external reporting is ours and ours alone. It also means that ultimately, we do this through the letter of representation, we will be reporting to Rudy as a representative of the Auditor General that we have internal control procedures in place. We have the procedures to prevent loss through fraud or waste. We have procedures to comply with the law. They are our responsibilities, not ones that is for the auditor to form a view whether we have or we haven't. We have the responsibility. We actually ultimately will be representing it to Rudy. He's saying that in signing this letter, we're signing up to that. If we can't sign up to it, by the way, as I say, we've got real problems, both firstly as a group of governors, secondly in terms of actually what the Auditor General would do with a non-signing. Okay, so that's reasonably important. The other thing that's really important here is to recognise the limitation of the auditor, which is actually the work of Rudy and Jenna is to provide an opinion, not to say that every transaction that we pass is right. Now, there are obligations on the auditor to look at material transactions, to form views, to inform us if they see instances of fraud or waste. And indeed, there are cases in memorial where, in fact, you get arguments where there has been issues. Should the auditor have seen it if they haven't mentioned it? That's another story we don't need to worry about. Bottom line is, we're saying in this we acknowledge our responsibilities as a group of governors, and we're up for the game. Okay? Simple as that. So stand letter. Any other thoughts? No? So let's go to the resolution, which is we receive the engagement letter. And this is where we can only recommend, but we recommend that Nigel signs the acknowledgement of the terms of reference. And to be specific, that's on page something of this, page 7 of the separate paper, where Nigel, you would sign and date it. Makes sense to me. I'm going to move it. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Nigel. Okay, put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against, it's carried. Brilliant. Thank you. Thanks for that. Good to have that out of the way. Just out of interest, before I move us into PX, annual plan or audit plan, whatever we call it these days, for the coming audit, when does that? We don't have that, do we? No. The answer's no. I know that.
No, we're not getting the annual plan audited this year.
No. Sorry, the annual audit plan, not our annual.
Sorry.
Our annual plan. I mean the plan to undertake the annual audit. When will we get that ready?
There are 3 key audit documents, Bruce, that's due this year. So the audit engagement letter covers a 3-year period. So that's the one we've just discussed.
2 years.
The next one is the audit proposal letter, which is the fee letter.
Yes, of course.
It covers 3 years, but we will only want to agree a fee for 1 year. And then the audit plan is the third document, which is in draft at the moment, but we still need to have our meetings with key people at council in order to make sure that we've got a handle on all the issues, and then we'll issue that, I think, before the end of March. Council should have the final audit plan.
What's the date of our March meeting? The 2nd of March. Oh, 2nd of March, yeah, because of course it was meant to be the first meeting for the year. Okay, so we won't have it in time for that. Rightio. Well, look, I think
we can work towards that, Bruce.
2nd of March?
We just need, yep.
The 2nd of March?
Yep.
Oh, brilliant. I'd like to get this tidied up, if we can. Both the fee proposal. I know you'll have to go through approval processes. That would include the fee proposal?
Well, the fee proposal has already gone for moderation, so that went Friday night. So the moment the OAG comes back to us, we will, be in a position to negotiate, start negotiation. The audit plan is different. That's just between me and council, so I need to agree with Nigel and his team what the key issues are and what the dates are.
That's right.
We're moving to a three visit audit, so not just interim and final. We need to see if we can accommodate a pre-final visit as well. So those things, if we can find the time to meet with key players in February or early February, then I see no reason why we cannot have a draft audit plan with council for the 2nd of March meeting.
Brilliant. Stephen, I'm not going to dictate. Can I encourage that to happen, please, if you can? Best endeavours, please, because I think that March is the right time to receive, particularly the plan. I appreciate it's a year we need to see the proposal as well, but it's the right time for us to see it because, as you say, between then and in fact June, you will want to have been in here doing work. We need to try and see this on a before the work starts basis rather than anything else. Hey, that's good. That's good news. Okay, thank you. We don't need there isn't a motion on that, but it's just useful. Can I just move us all, please, to page 77. We've got a number of items to get under PX for the reasons that are noted there. I consider that they're all reasonable, so I'm going to move from the chair that we move into PX for the reasons outlined in these papers and for those items. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Stacey. Is there any discussion on that motion? There's none. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against, it's carried. Look, and just as we do it, trying to make this reasonably efficient, I have brought forward the chance to meet in committee only time with